This week on True Crime Travelers. Imagine this. You've just killed someone in cold blood and you're on the run. You need to leave the country, so what do? You grab a fake passport, change your hair color, get a nose job, and try to start over in a tropical country under a new alias. But what you don't realize is that the world is small. Even if you're trying to lay low and start over, you'll make friends everywhere you go. Even when you want to hide, someone will find you. Today is a case of a solo female traveler on the run who learns the hard way that when you travel solo, you're never truly alone. Good morning, Emmy, my best friend who would never hurt me. But if you did, if you murdered me, where would you go to hide?
Some remote island in Indonesia because it's a non-extradition country.
God, you're so smart. You are so smart. That's why I love you. But that is not what happened today. But before we talk about the solo female traveler on the run, let's talk about why she's running. This starts with a woman named Moriah Wilson. She was destined to be one of the world's top cyclists, a rising star with a heart of gold. Mariah was one of those women with ambition and beauty and talent. She had it all. But in May of 2022, Mariah's life was brutally cut short in Austin, Texas. What followed was an international manhunt that spanned months and almost ended with her killer getting away. This isn't just a story of jealousy and betrayal. This is a story about how far someone will go just to escape justice. Before we dive into what happened to Mariah, let me tell you about this incredible woman. Mariah Wilson, or Mo to those who loved her, was born into a family of elite athletes. Her dad was on the US ski team, and her aunt, an Olympic Nordic skier.
Whoa.
Naturally, Mariah excelled at skiing. She dreamed of joining the US ski team herself. But tragically, knee injuries forced her to pivot. And pivot she did. After graduating from Dartmouth with an engineering degree, Mo found her passion for cycling. And within a few years, she was dominating races. She was climbing to the top of the sport, and she wasn't just winning. She was there to inspire. She's the kind of girl that you see her and she's not like, yeah, I know I'm amazing. She's the kind of girl that's like, I'm doing amazing things. I believe in myself and you can believe in yourself too. That is who Mariah Wilson was. And at just 25, she was already a role model. But her promising future came to a devastating halt in May 2022 when she was found murdered in Austin, Texas. Let me set the scene of what happened to me. On May 10th, 2022, Mo arrived in Austin to prepare for the Gravel Locos bike race, a bike race that she was favored to win. She stayed with a close friend in a luxury apartment, and she wasn't there just to race. I mean, she had friends everywhere, and not just friends, she had love interests. On one of these days in Austin, Texas, Mo spent the day with a man named Colin Strickland, a fellow cyclist, very handsome, charismatic, and as we'll soon find out, he was a former romantic partner of Mo's. Now, Colin Strickland is this incredible cyclist, and he was even sponsored by Red Bull, like one of those guys that, like, he's a showman, he's an entertainer, he is the guy that a lot of girls want. And the girl that wanted him the most, her name was Kaitlin Armstrong. And I'm going to get into Caitlyn and Colin's relationship in just a second. But it turns out that during a break in their relationship between Caitlyn and Colin, Mariah and Colin had a very brief romance. Colin said it lasted just a week and that it was easily turned into a platonic relationship. But Mo didn't really feel that way. During that week, she sent him a text and she said, "This weekend was strange for me. If you want to be friends, that's cool. But honestly, my mind has been going in circles." So this is painting this picture of Colin. He is dating this woman, Caitlyn, which I'll tell you about soon. They have a break. He sees Mo. He gets back with Caitlyn. Mo is feeling like, what's going on? Then he is going to see her and visit her when she's in town. How confusing this is for everyone involved, I would think, except for Colin. Now, that night, Colin had been in a relationship with Kaitlin Armstrong for 3 years. But he went and he picked up Mo on his motorcycle to take her out for a day around Austin. Bodies pressed together on the back of his bike. He took her to a famous swimming pool in Austin. It was hot out. They went to cool down. And then they grabbed dinner. And then Colin dropped Mo off back at her friend's apartment around 8:30 p.m.
That is definitely a date.
It sounds like a date to me. Although Colin would just say, "Hey, no, platonic, right?"
Fuckboy alert.
Fuckboy alert. Hours later, hours after Colin dropped Mo back at her friend's apartment, her friend returned home to find something devastating, shocking, horrific. She found the 25-year-old dead on the ground, covered in blood. Mariah Wilson had been shot multiple times, showing that the last shot, the killer had stood over her body and shot her point blank. The friend, she tried CPR, but with no luck. She called 911 and she said, "There's blood everywhere. I tried. I don't know what to do." And the detectives say that it looks like Mariah entered the apartment and was shocked by this killer in the room, and she was trying to escape, backing away. There was a trail of blood in the apartment. This was Mariah Wilson's last day on Earth. She would never make it to that bike race. But what happened? The investigators, they showed up. They started investigating, as they do. And initially, they thought that this was a robbery because Mariah's very expensive cycling bike was found discarded in the bushes. And so they thought, okay, a robbery. But the pieces just weren't adding up. Now, I bet you guys can discover where this is going, right? But let me tell you that nothing is going to prepare you for the story that I'm about to tell you. So Colin, he drops Mo off, right? But Colin was in this relationship with Kaitlin Armstrong. This was his girlfriend of 3 years. And she was the clingy type. She's the girl that changes her whole personality to impress a boy. And Colin was impressive himself, you know. He's this cyclist, this Red Bull guy, hot, talented, charismatic. Caitlyn had to have him. So she started showing interest in things that he likes, including cycling. Emmy, she even started becoming a cyclist herself, dressing the part. I mean, it's one thing to like someone's hobby or something, right? But she started practicing cycling. She started even competing at an amateur level. But for me, what gets me is that she started dressing the part, almost dressing like Mariah Wilson.
I can picture this so clearly. I've seen so many girls do that, like completely change just to like fit in their boyfriend's world.
Yeah. And this was really a far reach because Kaitlin Armstrong, she was more the yoga girl. I mean, she flew to Bali and she got her yoga teacher certification. She wears, the yoga pants and like the boho braid. Like she's very like peace, love, hippie. But you and I lived in Bali, and you know that sometimes it's the people that promote peace and love that are the most toxic.
Oh, for sure.
So this peace and love personality that Caitlyn was trying to portray, behind the scenes, she was the crazy jealous type. Now, let me tell you about Colin and Caitlyn's relationship. The two, they started dating right before COVID. And COVID shut down like people's worlds. And that meant that sometimes these relationships were like pushed together even more. So quickly, Caitlyn and Colin moved in together and they hunkered down together. They bought a house together.
Whoa.
They started a business together restoring vintage trailers. And it sounds like Caitlyn, with a degree in finance, she was funding the whole operation. She was being like the ultimate pick me girl by being like, oh, Colin, I'll pay for that. Just stick around. Oh, like vintage trailers, like I'll pay for that. Like let's do all these things that you love. Like me, pick me, pick me. But it doesn't matter how much you beg a man to pick you. Some men are going to stray.
Amen.
Amen. Colin told investigators that this jealous side of Caitlyn meant that he had to be very careful around other women. He even saved Mo's number in his phone under a different name to avoid Caitlyn's wrath. And I mean, they had a 3-year relationship. They had a break in the middle, and she knew that Colin had strayed to Moriah Wilson. Even though Caitlyn and Colin got back together, Caitlyn had it out for Mariah. But by the time this fateful night rolled around, it seems that Caitlyn and Colin were going through a breakup. Something that they didn't even mention to their friends. Their friends had no idea. And I imagine that Caitlyn thought, I can still get him back. I can still have him. But Colin very quickly turned his attention back to the girl that got away, back to Mariah. On May 11th, 2022, Colin had just dropped Mariah Wilson off at her apartment, and he had told Caitlyn that he was out running errands and that his phone had died. But Caitlyn, she was suspicious. And Caitlyn, playing the perfect part of the crazy ex-girlfriend, she was stalking Mariah and Colin that night. Because just as Colin dropped Mariah off at her apartment shortly after 8:30, surveillance footage shows a black Jeep with a bike rack near the apartment. Watching Colin drop Mariah off, circling, stalking, and within 1 minute, going to the apartment within 1 minute that she was dropped off. And that Jeep belonged to none other than Kaitlin Armstrong.
Holy shit.
Holy shit. Investigators wanted answers. They immediately called Colin in for questioning, and they say that he was very forthcoming. But he did tell them a couple clues that made investigators think that maybe his ex-girlfriend, Kaitlin Armstrong, had done this. For one thing, Colin had told investigators that he and Caitlyn, handguns for protection, and that they had even taken lessons together to learn how to use them. So we have her car at the scene. We have reason to believe that she is a jealous, crazy ex-girlfriend, and she has a weapon that could be used in this crime.
And owning guns in Texas is fairly normal, right?
Oh, girl, owning guns in Texas is like the most normal thing ever. I'm from Texas originally, and I remember I spent 6 months living in Dallas, like trying to have a relationship with my father that didn't go that well. And I was a nanny, and I remember one of his friends coming over, and the very first thing she said to me was, "Oh, honey, you need to get a gun." She's like, "I just carry my gun in my purse right here." And she had a pink gun in her pink purse.
Please tell me it was bedazzled.
It was not bedazzled. God. I think that would that might distract you from shooting. You might be like, "Oh, it's so shiny." And then, I feel like that's gun safety or something like that. I don't know. Okay.
Okay. Back to the investigation.
Okay, back to the investigation. So, investigators wanted to talk to Kaitlin Armstrong. And guess what, Emily? You're never going to believe this. This is so fantastic. And this just starts painting the picture of what kind of woman Kaitlin Armstrong is. Kaitlin Armstrong had a warrant out for her arrest. Just take a guess what her warrant was for. Just take a guess.
Crashing her car into an ex-boyfriend's house.
Oh, that's a real good one.
Too much?
No, that's a really great idea. But no, her warrant was because she went and got Botox and refused to pay the bill.
What?
Yeah. So here's the thing with police. This is a really classic move. They say, who are we after? Do they have any warrants? Let's pull them in on a warrant and we'll question them about something unrelated to the warrant. So that's what they did. They bring Kaitlin Armstrong in in handcuffs into the interrogation room. But here's the thing. They can't hold her on this warrant because it turns out that the warrant had the wrong birth date for her. Therefore, the warrant wasn't valid. But it doesn't matter. They got her in, right? But then they have to tell her, listen, Caitlin, you're not under arrest and you can leave at any time. But we have some questions for you. Caitlin is sitting there in the interrogation room in her yoga pants, and she has her classic signature, like, side braid, blonde, strawberry blonde hair. And the investigators are asking her questions like, what did you do yesterday? And she'll respond with very cold, I would like to leave, I think. They'd ask her another question. I would like to leave. Another, I would like to leave. But Caitlin didn't move towards the door. She didn't actually leave. And investigators say that they think that this was a calculated move on Caitlin's behalf to see how much do they really have on me. Now, Caitlin is smart. She's an intelligent woman. In her mind, behind her cold, expressionless face, she's plotting her escape. First, Caitlin fled to New York, where she visited her sister. And then, after a few days staying with her sister, she disappeared. Marshals, they went and they questioned her sister and they said, where is your sister, Caitlin? And her sister says, oh, she stayed with me just for a couple of days and then I dropped her off at the airport. She's going back to Austin. Oh, but wait a minute. Now I remember. She got to the airport and then she changed her mind and she said, no, I'm just going to drive to Austin. Maybe it was because her sister started thinking, they can see who gets on an airplane, Maybe her sister started being like, I don't want them to find her. The U.S. Marshals, they start looking for Caitlin's name in kind of like the reports of, who's been flying. They don't find her. They don't find her name. But then they get a little hunch that maybe Caitlin wasn't traveling on her own passport. So then they look up her sister's name. The U.S. Marshals discover that Kaitlin Armstrong had gone to New York, stayed with her sister, took her sister's passport, and used that passport to leave the country and fly to Costa Rica.
And did her sister know? Wouldn't this make her an accomplice?
Her sister claims not to have known. Her sister claims that Caitlin just took her passport and fled. But I don't believe that. I mean, they're sisters.
Yeah, me neither.
You do whatever you have to do for your sister. But what I can tell you is that Caitlin flew to Costa Rica. She wasn't looking to disappear off the grid into the jungle. No. Caitlin reinvented herself. This was going to be Costa Rica Caitlin. She changed her name to Beth. She dyed her strawberry blonde hair to kind of a more brown look. And she got plastic surgery to change her face. Caitlin had escaped and started a new life. She had gotten away with murder and was now living her best life in tropical paradise. Or so she thought. Because here's the problem that Emmy has already touched on in this episode. If you were going to go on the run to a non-extradition country like Cambodia, where the U.S. Marshals and the feds, they can't come and get you. But no. This girl let her wanderlust take over. She was such a travel enthusiast. Caitlin loved to travel. So much so that instead of prioritizing her fugitive status, she wanted to prioritize her dreamy wanderlust fantasy of living on the beach in Costa Rica for fun. The problem is, you make friends everywhere you go. Friends that ask questions. Friends that get to know your routines and your little idiosyncrasies. And friends that watch the news. Because by now, it was absolutely international headlines that this woman was on the run. Actually, let me correct myself. Caitlin had 1 month ahead of the Marshals. She had been in Costa Rica for an entire month before the U.S. Marshals flew down to find her. And in that time, she had made friends. She made friends. Now, the feds and the marshals, they are not being very forthcoming about their intelligence and how they got some of their connections, but they discovered that there was a businessman that had a connection to Caitlyn. They called him up a few times, being like, hey, this is the US Marshals. And he's like, I don't want any. And he hangs up the phone. He thinks like it's like telemarketers or whatever. And the US Marshals are getting so frustrated. And they finally call and they're like, listen, we're looking for this woman. This is what she looks like. This is how she behaves. Do you know her? And he's like, yeah, I think I met her in a yoga studio in Jaco, which is a town in Costa Rica. But the photo that you're showing me, that doesn't look like her. Because remember, she's undergone a makeover. New hair, new name, new nose job, new lip filler. As if this was going to be just, what she needed to escape the people looking for her. But eventually, the feds, they track her down to the tiny town of Santa Teresa, Costa Rica. Now, let me tell you, this place is actually really dreamy. And Emmy, as I'm reading this and as I've been investigating this case and looking into Santa Teresa, do you want to go with me? It sounds really amazing.
Yeah.
Have you been to Costa Rica?
I have not, but my boyfriend has, and he loved it.
I have been. I found it to be a little bit more expensive than I thought it was going to be, but this town of Santa Teresa sounds amazing. It is a bohemian paradise, perfect for Kaitlin Armstrong, where lush jungles meet pristine beaches, drawing surfers, yogis, and wanderlust-driven expats from around the globe. It's a town littered in tourists and foreigners and digital nomads. Now, this laid back coastal town, it pulses with this like vibrant energy, offering endless waves, beachfront yoga classes, incredible food, cafes, restaurants, and a social scene. You can move here with my book, The One-Way Ticket Plan, Find and Fund Your Purpose While Traveling the World. She was following the blueprint of finding the best little cozy town where she could start a life over. Days spent chasing sunsets, exploring jungles on ATVs, and, wellness retreats. So she started integrating into this town like a normal expat, not like she had just killed someone in America. The US Marshals, they made their way down to Costa Rica. A month later, remember, taking boats and cars deeper and deeper into Costa Rica to find her. They canvassed hostels. They combed through yoga studios. They even got one of their female operatives to go undercover and go to yoga classes, hoping to find and befriend Kaitlin Armstrong. No luck. They walked down this main strip. There's this main strip in Santa Teresa where everyone kind of comes for their shopping and their socializing, their nightlife, their live music. And one of the feds, he sees a girl that looks like Caitlin. And he's like, that's her. But then a minute later, he sees another girl that looks like Caitlin. He's like, oh, maybe that's her. The problem was this destination was so female friendly that they couldn't tell one girl from the other. And then they had this disadvantage of knowing that Caitlin had possibly changed her appearance. They even discovered that she had multiple names she was going under: Beth, Ari, some others. And months passed with no luck, no sign of Caitlin. So they decided, instead of looking for her, maybe they would set a trap. They got clever. They went on to Facebook. And as you guys know, like, Facebook groups are a huge resource when you travel. These Facebook communities are very supportive. You can find places to live. You can find friends. You can ask about medications. And you can also sometimes find jobs in these Facebook groups. So they posted a job pretending to be a hostel, and they said that they were looking to hire a yoga teacher. About a week went by with no bites. Just as the US Marshals were giving up, packing up, thinking she got away with it, they got a message on Facebook from Kaitlin Armstrong responding to their ad to become a yoga teacher in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica.
I have a question.
See?
Was the message from Caitlyn or one of her aliases?
I'm sure it was an alias.
Hmm.
Because if she was just on her own Facebook, they would just track her. I'm sure that she had made a whole new Facebook post, which tells you, like how far she really thought that she was going to go with this.
Well, new nose, new you.
Oh my gosh. New nose, new you. So Caitlyn walked right into their trap. She said that she wanted to meet these people for an interview at a little hostel called Don Juan's. Now, the U.S. Marshal, he didn't want to spook her. So he went in to Don Juan's and he sees these two people sitting, and only one of them, is a woman who doesn't look exactly like he thought Caitlyn would look. He thinks, I don't want to spook her, so I'm just going to start chatting to her, but only in Spanish. They're chit-chatting back and forth, but Caitlyn's Spanish, it's not that great yet. So she pulls out her phone to get Google Translate up. And you know, Emmy, when you're Google translating with someone, you're typing something and you're kind of both now hunched over looking at a phone together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the distance between them
narrows.
Yes, the distance between them narrows. He notices a bandage on her nose from her recent nose job. He notices her swollen lips from lip filler. But it was her eyes. It was her eyes that gave her away, because you can't change your eyes. He leaves the interaction, leaving her there to just think, nothing's wrong. He gets in the car, picks up the phone, calls the local police, and says, it's her. The local police move in and arrest her. They have her. And at the hostel, they found her receipts for plastic surgery. Kaitlin Armstrong's month-long on the run after murdering her romantic rival had come to an end. Caitlyn was extradited to Texas, but this case was far from over. During her trial in November of 2023, prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence that Caitlyn had been using a tracking app, a fitness app, to stalk Mo. This fitness app is called Strava.
I know that app. So many of my athlete friends use that. That's so scary.
Can you tell us more about it?
I'm not an athlete, so I'm not a pro on it, but it basically tracks your movement, your your distance, your speed. Like if you're a runner, a biker, it basically gathers all the information on your sessions and the route you took, the path you went by. That's so creepy, and it's so crazy to think that it was Mo's hobby what made her vulnerable.
Exactly. We talk about tracking apps a lot, you and I, but we say only share your location with people that you really, really trust. Because Kaitlin Armstrong had so much anger for Mariah, and she knew exactly where Mo was staying. She knew the apartment to sit outside and watch and wait for her. And that day that Colin lied to Caitlin and was caught dropping off Mariah at her house on the back of his motorbike, I imagine Caitlin was already angry, but this filled her with rage. She watched Colin drop Mo off. She had her gun in her car. She went into Mariah's apartment. She confronted her and then very quickly shot her multiple times. And that bike that Mariah had, Caitlin's DNA was on that bike. And Caitlin's plastic surgery and this escape, this only cemented her guilt. The jury took just 2 hours to find Kaitlin Armstrong guilty of murder. She was sentenced to 90 years in prison.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. And yet, no punishment will ever bring Mariah back. Her family and the cycling community and all of the young women that looked up to her lost someone truly special because some girl was so insecure over a man that she decided to kill her. How gross.
How gross.
What a bitch.
What a bitch, indeed.
Understatement of the year.
Oh yeah, understatement of the year, but also like what an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Because I bet he did play a part in all of this, like manipulating the whole thing, like this bizarre love triangle
Mm-hmm.
that fueled Caitlyn's fire.
He played with these two women. He
Mm-hmm.
played with them. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I'm pretty sure that like Colin is still beloved. He has kind of like downplayed his relationship with Mariah, being like, no, we're just friends. We're just friends. But it doesn't matter how gross a guy is. There's no reason to kill someone over him. And what did she think was going to happen? Did Caitlyn think that she was going to kill Mariah and that her and Colin were going to be living happily ever after and that they get back together? Or was it her plan all along? I'm going to kill her and I'm going to leave. Or was it a crime of passion, you know? But I would say that the stalking and the app tell us that there was more planning to this, but not good enough planning, because if she had planned well enough, she would not have moved to Costa Rica with this unrealistic fantasy of starting over.
I think it was half planned. I think it was very passionate, very emotional, that she didn't really think it through.
I agree. Emmy, have you ever been in a relationship with jealousy?
Not really, but I have dated assholes who just like playing with several girls at the same time. And that sucks.
That does suck. Hey, do you remember that night in Bali where I caught the guy that I was dating making out with his taco maker?
One of his cooks.
Yeah. So what happened was Emilia introduced me to a Mexican chef in Bali who was just like so charming, so charismatic. And he and I started dating. This was COVID, so everything's in a bubble. And I'm at his restaurant and we're about to leave and we're about to go home. And I'm outside, kind of like waiting for him. We're going to jump on the back of his bike and go home. I'm like, where is he? And I go inside and he is kissing his tortilla maker. Not like the machine, but like the woman that makes his tortillas. I was heartbroken. I didn't confront them. I went outside, I called my driver, and I was like, come and get me. And then this Mexican guy followed us on a bike. He like Tokyo drifted in front of our car. He like stopped our car. But you know what? And yeah, and I still slept with him that night and I have no regrets. But you know what? Oh, and then he made us aguachiles the next morning.
Yeah, your like those 2 months of your life were such a telenovela. I really enjoyed it.
I loved it too. But you know what? When I ran into this woman at a restaurant, I hugged her. I hugged her. I was like, hi, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Because it was almost just like, man, we've been through some crazy stuff together. It wasn't like, what a bitch, couldn't believe you. I don't get those girls that do that. Now, if Mariah was chasing someone's boyfriend, I could get having a spat. I could get being like, who the hell do you think you are? But if it's something that's so like flimsy, we're not the kind of girls that go after a girl.
No. And I am sure this, what's his name, Nick? Like the bike guy?
It's another generic American guy name. It's Colin.
Oh, sorry. Okay, and I bet this Colin guy was like whispering sweet nothings in Mo's ears, you know? And then, so yeah, just like these two women being against each other when actually he's the one who was playing with both of them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Que hueva.
Come on.
Que hueva, cabrón.
My mom listens to this podcast.
Oh, yeah. I lived with Emmy for a year, and I started mimicking all the things that she would say around the house. And then we go to fly to Mexico to stay with her family in Mazatlan. And I said something like, cabrón. And you're like, you can't say that at my house. And I said, no mames. And you're like, you can't say that at my house. I'm like, have you taught me anything I can say? And now Emilia's mom and my mom, she's my mom now too, listens to this podcast. So, lo siento, Monica. It's not my fault. It's your daughter's fault, not mine.
We have lipsticks on.
We have our lipstick on. So Emmy's mom, do you want to tell him the rule?
Well, yeah, my mom, you will never see her, even if she's at her Tai Chi class or her yoga class or wherever she is, her lipstick is always going to be perfect. So we have this rule that we call it the Monica rule. Whenever your lipstick is fading, you have to reapply.
The Monica rule.
It's a lifestyle. I'm sorry, I'm hungover.
It's a lifestyle. I don't mind you hungover. I can't believe you're not drinking mezcal today. Well, let's expedite this process. Let's extradite you from this podcast and let you go get in bed because you're in Spain. It's your nighttime. Let's talk about what is the travel lesson of the day.
Okay, so what's the travel lesson for today's episode? I want everyone who's listening to pay attention real close because we have talked before many times on this podcast about location sharing. Lexi and I, we share our location with each other all the time in an app called Live 360, but it's a private location sharing. I can see hers, she can see mine, and we only share our location with people we trust. Don't go around sharing your location with anyone all the time, like on your Instagram stories. Don't share where you are live every day while you're traveling.
Exactly. So I'm about to go to Bali, and this is actually our last episode of 2024. We'll talk about that in a second. But I'm about to go to Bali, and I don't share my Instagram stories live. So if I'm at a really amazing hotel and I want people to see it, I wait until I leave that hotel. You will never catch my live location. Wait, but wait, there was one time that I was staying in the jungles of Bali, pretty far off. It was like 2.5 hours into the jungle. And I thought, no one is going to come track me down 2.5 hours into the jungle. I posted an Instagram story of where I was. And lo and behold, this girl shows up into the mountains, into this eco retreat where I am, pretending that we have just ran into each other, that we just accidentally crossed paths. And I was like, that does not sound right. You're just by yourself and you just decided to come 2.5 hours into the jungles. I think that day solidified something very real for me, and that if someone wants to find you, they're going to come and find you. So never underestimate a crazy.
Oh my God, yes. Never underestimate a crazy. So take care of yourself and don't share your location with everyone.
No. So speaking of taking care of yourself, Emmy and I have worked our asses off for over a year now on True Crime Travelers. We worked on this podcast for over 10 months before we even put it out there. And now we are giving ourselves a much needed 2-week break over the holidays. We are going to take off during Christmas and New Year's. I'm going to Bali, and we will pick back up in the new year.
Yeah, how exciting.
How exciting. However, we might do some episodes while I'm still here at the house and just release them in Bali. So we'll see. Who knows where you guys are going to see us next? You might see us just right here, or maybe you'll see us in Bali.
Who knows what life will look like then?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to be. I'm going to keep you guessing, just like you should keep the stalkers guessing. Anyways, you get the point. We love you guys so much. We have had an incredible... How long have we had the podcast out? This is episode 13.
This since October 1st. It's been 2.5 months already.
It has been so much fun. And the fact that we have listeners that say to us, I listen to every episode, means so much to us. Like, I know that Terry and Jacqueline and
Tati.
And we have so many friends that listen to every single episode, and so many travelers that we actually didn't know before that have already become friends in just this short amount of time on True Crime Travelers. And that's our goal. We're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you, but we're also here to like create this community of women that like have each other's back and that support each other in traveling, but also are there for each other when we need each other. And that's what we've been doing. And I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of you, Emmy. And I love what we're doing with True Crime Travelers.
Yeah, I love it too. And we love so much seeing where and when and how you listen to the podcast. So continue sending us your photos if you're like listening on your morning commute, if you're listening on an airplane, if you're listening while you're cooking and dancing. Go on sharing how and where and when you listen to True Crime Travelers.
Absolutely. And don't forget that we have a little competition going on. And if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast and then take a screenshot of that and send it over to us at hola@truecrimetravelers.com, at the end of the year, we're going to pick our favorite review, and that person is going to win a special secret prize. We are going to be announcing that winner in our new Facebook group for True Crime Travelers. So join us there after every episode where we can chit chat about true crime travel episodes, but also cases that you guys want us to cover or cases that we want to chit chat about that we haven't covered yet. Okay, I'm rambling. I'm going to go.
Okay. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. We love you.
Love you. Travel safe.
Bye.